Here's Brody Brazil.
To be clear, today is not the final day of existence for the Pac-12 conference. Like, the school year is still going to go on. Other sports haven't even started yet. This conference will still exist for several more months. Literally, it's going to continue after today. But figuratively, with the final regular season football games of the Pac-12 conference, it does kind of feel like today, figuratively, is the end of the road. And I just want to state from the beginning, I don't even have true connections to the Pac-12. I didn't go to a Pac-12 school. My wife did, but honestly, I'm a bystander here, and I can't believe still what an outrageous decision this was to have all the schools go separate ways, to have it be the end of this conference. And it's something that we could see coming. That's also clear. This wasn't on a whim. This wasn't overnight. It was a progression of something that never got tended to, maintained. It never got the proper attention. And now we're here at the end of the line of the Pac-12 conference. A really dumb thing that over time, I think we'll realize exactly how dumb this decision was. Really, these decisions were 108 years of tradition gone in an instant. So we're not even talking about just my lifetime or even my parents' lifetime. You have to go back to like grandparents' lifetime, their parents. This is like 4 generations deep of a conference on the West Coast and all these schools that came together. It didn't start as 10, but it got to 12 at its peak, and now it's going to not even 0. It's going to be 2 as of right now starting next season. But 108 years of tradition gone in an instant. You have some schools going to the Big 10. It's not 10. Big 12. It's not 12. And you have Cal and Stanford going to the Atlantic Coast Conference, even though they play miles away from the Pacific Ocean. And I think it's tough to realize that there's no coming back from this. With all these schools going totally separate directions, to try and ever wrangle them back together again at this point seems impossible. This is not like they're starting a new conference and it'll just be something different. That might be okay, or even if most of the schools went to one place, and there is a possibility of ever recapturing this, there's kind of like no turning back in the way this goes. And I want to be fair. I started off this video by saying it's the final football regular season weekend of the Pac-12, and there are other sports. Yeah, sure, all the attention is going to be on the football schools, the football schedule, the football teams, and how things align as related to football. But let's absolutely not forget, as part of the student-athlete experience, I'm going to talk about the student-athlete experience here, not just the business side. This is so much more than football. Men's and women's sports, fall, winter, spring sports. I mean, we're always going to talk about this as it relates to football. That's where most of the attention is. That's where a majority of the money comes from. But this is definitely not only about football as we talk about the loss of the Pac-12 conference. Geographical rivalries just destroyed. And I'm not so much talking about Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, Stanford, Arizona State, Cal, and UCLA, but how about just Oregon facing Washington? Will there ever be a time in basketball seasons, in football seasons, in baseball seasons, in softball seasons, in volleyball seasons, can they actually still have those now non-conference games be played? How about Cal and UCLA? How about Oregon and Washington? It really does set the West Coast up to be kind of lame. I don't know what other word to describe, but you're going to have so many games now played on the East Coast or other parts of the country. There's inherently going to be a fewer amount of college sports games played in all sports across all seasons, East versus West. We're not going to have as many out West because a lot of the West Coast teams are playing East Coast Conference games, depending on which conference they're transitioning to. So the geographical rivalries destroyed, the sports geography kind of destroyed with this conference going away. There was one big West Coast conference. Well, no, there is a West Coast conference. There was one big conference on the Pacific Coast that is now gone, and it's unmatched by anything else. I think students got bamboozled in their choices. Let's say that you're a freshman at Cal or Stanford this year, and you just committed to play your respective sport. Well, when you came in, it was your assumption, and I guess this kind of really developed over the summer, so I guess there was time to back out. But maybe you're a sophomore, so 2 years ago. You got into this because you wanted to play on the West Coast. It's where your family's from. You realize that you're going to play sports, up and down from Washington to Arizona, maybe out to Colorado and Utah a little bit, but you're going to stay out west. You're not going to change time zones. Your family's going to get to watch you play, and this is what you signed up for. But when the ultimate decisions here were made, you as a student athlete had no choice in this. You had no voice in this. And now the school is telling you by your junior and senior year, you know what, you go to Cal, but you're going to play out east. In fact, you're going to play Rutgers as one of your regular season games in the ACC. That's the kind of travel that we're now subjecting you to. You're going to be making so many transcontinental trips throughout the school year. We're talking 4+ hour plane flights all the time as a student athlete. Multiple times a week, probably. Or you're going to be gone out east for 2.5 weeks in the middle of a semester. What are we doing here? Again, this is not what they signed up for. And now they're being midstream changed and transitioned into this. The current Big Ten, geographically, it surrounds the Great Lakes and the East Coast. That's where Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA are going. And like I said, the time zone change itself is daunting on the body clock. Yeah, these are young kids. I get it. They can handle a lot more than an older adult can, but 5-hour flights all the time. Is this the student-athlete experience? Look, at least on the West Coast, you could fly from the Bay Area to Washington, or the Bay Area to Southern California, or Southern California to Arizona. These are hour-plus flights. This is like a long bus ride, to be very honest with you. You're literally going to have travel become a main component of all of these sports seasons. So going to the Big Ten, not easy. How about Cal and Stanford? So separated from the ACC. I mean, SMU in Texas and Notre Dame, not in football, but in all the other sports, those were the two Western edge schools of the ACC. Texas and Indiana. Basically, everybody far east of the Mississippi River. Those were the two Western schools. So for Cal and Stanford, and they were the last ones to kind of change conferences, man, was there nothing better for them? Geographically, they couldn't even get into the other conferences like all their former Pac-12 schools did. Did they get caught behind? Did they get left behind? For Cal and Stanford getting to the ACC, I mean, it is a landing spot. Optimal? No. Survivable? I don't know. But there doesn't seem anything beneficial about where they're going other than their survival of their sports programs. Utah and Colorado, they probably have it the easiest, I guess. Because the Big 12 is more centralized geographically. A lot of schools, even still west of the Mississippi and really kind of in the central part of our country where Utah and Colorado are. Obviously, if you're in Boulder, east of the Rockies, you're just kind of staying out in that direction. These were the last two schools into the Pac-12 to make it from the Pac-10 to the Pac-12, and maybe they're the least attached. And maybe they were the last ones in. Maybe they were among the first ones out. Maybe they didn't feel as much loyalty or tradition of the Pac-12 conference. Maybe they were, you talk about how this dam broke. Wasn't just one piece. And it really wasn't all one big piece together. It wasn't one small piece or one big piece. It fractured so much that you kind of have to wonder what every school's different motives and opinions were in this. The Pac-12 coming undone, I mean, a large part of it, I hate to say, are the media deals and decisions along the way. They were always in question. And yes, it does come down to football because that's where the money is and that's where the attention is. But playing all those Pac-12 after dark football games, like an 8:30 Pacific kickoff, it's like midnight, mid-first quarter on the East Coast. Who's going to be spotlighted playing for one of those teams? Who's going to watch those games? Who's going to even understand or know the results, let alone if you're on the West Coast? 11:45 and the game is wrapping up, you're having a hard time paying attention to that. The moment the Pac-12 said, well, you know what? We can't fight the fight to be on any earlier. We can't have a good network. We can't have a good TV deal. We'll take whatever they'll give us. It's kind of when they submitted to being a least priority. And the Pac-12 network, great idea from its inception, and technically revolutionary, producing games from a studio, from remote locations, the ability to produce thousands of games and events per year, and put all of that on television and on streams for families and schools to watch. But if you don't get your network carried, like regionally and across the country here in 2023, let alone even 10 years ago, you're going to struggle. The exposure wasn't there. The network was trying from a production standpoint to do what it set out to do, and it did, but it did not get helped from the distribution side. So the decisions and deals by the conference about the network and its partners always in question. Could we see any of this coming over the years? Yeah, probably. And there were no actions, no changes, no recourse. It's kind of like a lead in sports. Like when they went from 10 to 12. Great, you're growing. But then they just stopped. And they didn't secure the future. And next thing you know, there's talk, there's whispers. And then in one summer, this past summer, in August, I believe, it literally all comes undone. And none of this has the students' best interest. These schools are not going different directions because even the Pac-12 was bad. I don't even know if it was that. They just want more. They're trying to squeeze more juice out of the orange, more money for schools, more money from media, more money for the conference. You're going to ask more of the kids. Maybe some of this is a retaliation to the name, image, and likeness situation. Well, if this is going to be a business, we're going to treat it like a business. Maybe. But deciding to do what they're doing with the Pac-12 doesn't seem like it has the student-athlete experience at heart. So it's the final day of football in a regular season in the Pac-12 conference. And a lot of you who watch my channel, I'll say this here at the end, you watch because I cover the Oakland A's situation and their potential, some would say inevitable relocation to Las Vegas. A lot of people look at that and say, I cannot figure that out. The math here does not add up other than somebody making a decision that they were going to make no matter what. And it kind of feels like along those same lines, schools in the Pac-12, they can look at all these reasons I just mentioned here and not really care because it's not their bottom line. Thumbs up because you made it here to the end of the video. That'll help me and this channel. You know I really appreciate that. Also, don't forget to subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.